Get an editor, they said. It's the only way to scale, free up your time for creativity, and be more strategic on YouTube. Listen, many bigger, more successful YouTubers than I have said that this is what you need to do. It's what helped set them free and help them be more successful. And yeah, I wanted to do that. So here's what this video is about. Me trying to get an editor for my channel. I had tried having an editor before on another channel and it was okay, but not great. But it had been a couple of years, so I thought, well, if everybody says to do it, maybe I should try again. First, I started off looking for who might be good. I looked around for freelancers in a few different places and I found out that I couldn't afford them. The going rate was maybe, I don't know, $200, $300, $400 US for a long form YouTube video. I sent my editing timeline to a few people to have a look at and they came back to me and said, hey, look, these are quite complex edits. They're going to cost you in the US retail at least about $400 US for this kind of 5-minute to 8-minute video that I had sent them. And yeah, that was kind of reassuring in that I was doing good work and complex work, but not reassuring in that this is going to cost me an arm and a leg if I wanted somebody else to do it for me. So really expensive, in particular for US based companies or editors. So I started looking around on my B list of where I really wanted to be in that editing production kind of service space. And there were a few things I learned which I think you should know about. The first is beware of any service offering you unlimited videos, because the way that it works and the pipeline that you have to set up and how long it takes for them to get a video back to you and how many revisions you have to do until it's at a point where you're happy with it, it's going to take a while, a lot of time. You're going to be lucky to get 8 to 10 videos done if you're just a solo creator and this is your first experience of doing this, because it takes a while to get an editing team up to speed, or even if it's just one editor. You're not just building a transaction here, you're building a relationship. Also, figure out how an editor or an editing service, which is what I ended up going for, is going to communicate with you. How they're going to manage your project and how you're going to interact with that. Because you really don't want to be doing this with back and forth emails, which rapidly builds up to a very long chain. Now, I had a good system. They were setting up project management on monday.com so I could have a Kanban board to see my video project that's been submitted, where they're still editing, showing me what they're working on, what they have submitted to me for approval, the videos that are in revision, and the videos that are done now and being repurposed maybe for other things. And that is another thing that you can maybe prepare for and ask for. Maybe you'd say, hey, I would like to put a short out on either YouTube or Instagram Reels or something like that, or even a square format video which you can post up as an Instagram post by itself, which has got subtitles baked in. So yeah, there are some good deals out there, but really try and figure out how you're going to get that communication sorted first, because communication, believe me, is the biggest thing if you're trying to hire an editor or an editing team. Next up, in my experience, beware of content production farms. And I think that's really what I ended up joining as a system, as a creator. Now, the reason why I got alarm bells around this is that after signing up with the video service that I did sign up with, let's call them company A, I got an email from another company, company B, with an almost identical landing homepage, slightly cheaper, offering exactly the same kinds of videos, 10 per month, almost exactly the same copy on their website, slightly different, and this rang alarm bells for me. They said, hey, first month free, have an onboarding call with us. But I dug around the website a little bit more and yep, surprise, surprise, I found an endorsement that was actually quoting the creator's experience with company A, who had already signed up with, not company B on their website, who had just approached me with that free 1-month offer. So when I went back to company B and said, hey, this looks really similar to company A. In fact, one of your clients endorses company A instead of you, company B. What do you have to say about that? Unsurprisingly, they didn't come back with anything. Silence. So I canceled that onboarding call. But what it told me is that maybe there are content production farms here that have several different brands that are reaching out and you're just part of that system. You're a creator who is plugged into a content production farm, and that has consequences. And that's what I'm going to tell you about next. First up, I think, yes, this was a content farm. This was a content editing service that was based in Pakistan for this one. And that's great. That's fine. But there were definitely language issues for me being an English speaker who was born and brought up in the UK and is now living and working in New Zealand. Yes, because my accent has changed a bit, and they certainly had trouble picking up what I was saying sometimes in my videos, or I don't know, maybe they were doing it via AI, and AI can have trouble with certain accents too. Second, they definitely had homework issues. They asked me all this stuff around channels that I kind of admired or aspired to or that I liked, and also asked for my examples of my own work that would give them a grounding as to what their editing style should look like. This is all on the onboarding call and the onboarding form that I filled in. I sent all that stuff through, but from the first couple of edits that I got through back from them, I saw very little evidence that they'd paid attention to any of that, not even really watching my own videos, and that was really disappointing. I even sent them an editing style sheet and said, hey, look, I've not done any of this before, but this is the sort of stuff you need to know. These are the fonts that I use. Here, have a copy. These are the brand colors. Here are the hex codes. And here are the types of transitions that I like. This is what I don't like. Please bear this in mind. And they hadn't really read a lot of this, or if any of it at all. So yeah, homework issues. Next, inconsistency and reliability issues. So things like not really taking feedback into account. They were using frame.io as their feedback system, which theoretically is really good. They can load their updated edit into frame.io. I can view that video and watch it second by second, pause, add a comment, tell them what I like, what I don't like, what I want changed on any particular section. Now for an 8-minute video, the first video I sent them, it took over an hour and a half, almost 2 hours. That's how many changes I needed to make in that video. Now I could have got a long way through that edit myself, if not totally through that edit completely in the time that it had taken for me to also source the B-roll for them or create it. And I kind of trusted them to put it in the right place given what it was that I was saying. But what became very clear is that contextually, they didn't understand storytelling. So they would just let me tell them what I was saying in the video without showing what it was that I was saying on the screen at the same time. They just kind of ignored the B-roll, or they went out and sourced other B-roll, or they used the wrong bit of the B-roll, which is not relevant to what it was that I was saying at that point. So this is a really big problem. I don't know if they kind of understood storytelling as well as they said they did in the blurb on their website, also in the testimonials that they used, and also in the portfolio that they used to advertise their service either, because I wasn't really seeing much evidence of it. And the to and fro that I had with the project manager who onboarded me said I was quite different to a lot of the people that they work with. I think that they work with a lot of people who are maybe more generic, people who don't have channels that are that big. Maybe they're using it more for lead generation, maybe videos from real estate agents or other people who are using YouTube as a side promotion angle for their business. They weren't really dealing so much with YouTubers like me, even though in their portfolio, they said that they did. So yeah, that was an issue. So back on inconsistency, I'll just list them off now. Not taking my feedback into account. So even though I've given them detailed feedback, I'd get a revision back and they hadn't taken a lot of what I'd said into account in the next revision. So I'd end up having to repeat myself many times over many revisions. I'd get onto the 7th or 8th revision and I'm still repeating myself. Now I told you about the B-roll not really fitting contextually or being completely irrelevant. And they sometimes miss deadlines too. They didn't do it that often, to be fair. They're actually reasonably good at that, but not sticking to the style sheet, even though I kind of pointed it out to them lots of times. One of the big issues was poor quality control. Even though they had a process supposedly for that quality control, the video would come back to me with typos, misspellings, capital letters in the wrong place. Sometimes the edit was just completely wrong. The transition just kind of like covered me up, or I'd see blank bits of the screen somewheres. Even though I'd been very clear in the style sheet or given some feedback that told them not to do lots of things. The font size was changing between revisions, the transitions were changing between one edit and another. And all this told me that I didn't have a consistent editor in my experience either. Now, I did raise some of these issues and the standard went up for a couple of videos. And then when I thought I was getting somewhere, that we were getting somewhere as a bit of a team, I had an absolutely abysmal edit sent back to me that just made me go, no, I just can't carry on with this. This is done. So yeah, at the end of all that, I sat down and I figured out what's the actual cost here of me using an editor. And it's not just the bumper sticker retail cost of them doing the edit, because that was pretty cheap. I was paying $500 for theoretically 10 videos. That's about $50 per video, which yeah, sounds great. But there's the hidden costs that you have to add into that. Number one, going through 7 or 8 revisions for a video, and those revisions not really being fully addressed. So having to repeat yourself as well. Them not sticking to a style sheet, poor quality control with things like typos and all that kind of stuff. But not just the time that's been taken that you have to account for in your cost, but also the time lag. So me being in New Zealand, I'd be sending them stuff or revisions in my morning, but it wouldn't get addressed until I was asleep the next day. So it would be 24 hours, which is what they say it should be, but it would be 24 hours of me having sent it and then either working on or another video was being produced by me and trusting that the process was going to come right. And that's fine for some people if you have that kind of time. But it's just a heads up for you that if you don't really have 3 to 4 months for this to come right, then I don't know whether I can recommend this strategy or this experience that I've had to other people. Because for me, a lot of other time was taken out from stuff that I'd already had planned, right? So I'd maybe allocated half an hour or an hour for revisions to be done the following morning from a video that I'd already sent in before I moved on to something else. But I ended up spending, maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours trying to sort out revisions, maybe even longer sometimes, and then trying to get my head together to move on to the next thing, which cuts into the time that I'd already allocated that next morning. And me being a parent, I've got fairly fixed time that I can use for this kind of work. And if it eats into it, I can't really make it up anywhere else. Because then it's the anxiety, because I started to get repeatedly bad edits or bad revisions sent back to me. So I'd be worried the next morning about what's going to come back to me. Is this supposed to be making my life easier? Because it's not making my life easier, it's making it harder. So the cost was much larger than the bumper sticker retail price that you think you're paying. I think it was maybe 2 or 3 times that, at least, with the time lost. Now on the plus side here, and it is a big one of the reasons I chose this service was the 14-day money-back guarantee they offered. And to their credit, they honored this and refunded my money. So although it didn't work for me, I do credit and acknowledge their integrity in honoring their word. So yeah, one of the things through all this I think I realized is that going through all of this process, which I talked about in a previous video on why I think you need to start YouTube if you're over 40, is that I realized that I kind of missed editing. And this is always, I think, an underlying thing for me. I think editing is a fundamental part of the process in making videos for me. And I know lots of people who maybe don't like editing, but I discovered that, well, more really confirmed, I think, that I really do like editing. And so I like doing this, but I have to, I think, find a lighter way to edit, because I found in a recent edit that I put out that I didn't do that well from a views point of view, but it did okay from a watch time point of view, and it stimulated a lot of conversation and comments. Because I think once YouTube had found its audience, then the people who liked the video watched it, a lot of it. And that was really interesting for me in terms of thinking about how am I going to go forward with this. I think this video is going to be one of these lighter edit videos too, with maybe a little bit of text on screen. Let me know what you think. So what would I say? Would I say get an editor? Yes, maybe to that proposition, but only if you have a very uniform format for your videos and you want to produce a lot of them like that. Like I say, if you're using it as a lead generation magnet, then this would work well for you. I think if you're using it as an adjunct to your other business, your mainstream business in that way, then yeah, this could work. But for creative purposes and really having creative videos rather than kind of cookie cutter stuff that looks a lot like everything else that's coming out on YouTube from these content creation farms, because I think that's what's going on here. You're going to see a lot of video that's coming out that looks the same. And to avoid headaches for yourself, I would say that this is probably a no from me. And that's what I've learned. And I hope that that's useful for you too. Check out my video here next on why I think you need to just get started if you're thinking about your own YouTube channel. I'll see you there.